لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك إن الحمد والنعمة لك والملك لا شريك.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي امري واحلل لساني يفقهوا Inshallah, today, inshallah, I will try my best, inshallah, to give us, inshallah, a quick recap, inshallah, about this life of Ibrahim, the story of Ibrahim and his son. Before I start, I will first I want to ask, who was Ibrahim alayhi salam? Can you speak a bit louder? Oh, mashallah. He was Khalilullah, as mashallah, the brother said. Mashallah. Anyone else? Inshallah, don't be shy, inshallah. If you know, inshallah, put your hand up.
He was a prophet.
Mashallah, that's very true. As the brother said, he was a prophet and also he was a friend of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he was sent to guide his community. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah An-Nahl from ayah 120 to 122, which the translation says, Ibrahim was certainly a model of faith for the people, obedient to Allah and upright, and was not an idolater but grateful for him for his favors. And in this ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us that Ibrahim alayhi salam is a role model that we should all look for to emulate, or rather we should try to follow his way of life. Now in the world there are different types of religions, and some religions are put into either polytheism, meaning they believe in more than one God, or monotheism, which is you believe in only one God. And in the world at the moment, the religion that is seen as monotheism is Islam, Christianity and Judaism. And in those three religions, all of them believe in Ibrahim alayhi salam. All of them say that Ibrahim was their prophet. And the Jews would say that Ibrahim was the father of the Jewish people. The Christians would say that that Isa alayhi salam, rather Jesus, was linked to Ibrahim, so then he has special favors, so that means he was a Christian. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala refutes all of this, or rather Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that that's not the case. In Surah Al-Imran, verse 67, in which Allah says that Ibrahim alayhi salam was neither a Jew nor a Christian, but he was a true Muslim, Hanifa, and he was not of the mushrikeen, meaning the polytheists. Ibrahim alayhi salam, he was born in the kingdom of Babylon, in the ancient Mesopotamia, which is now called Iraq. And Ibrahim alayhi salam was born into a family in which all of them worshipped idols. Not only did they worship idols, his family was, subhanAllah, not any ordinary idol, but they also rejected Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but also they were the people who used to make the idols. So not only did they reject Allah, worship idols, but they are the ones who encourage people to worship idols. And from a young age, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he is blessed, Ibrahim alayhi salam. And from Surah Al-Anbiya, verse 51, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, the translation, he was endowed with spiritual understanding from an early age. Allah enlightened his heart and mind, giving him wisdom from childhood. Allah stated, indeed, we bestow aforetime on Ibrahim his portion of guidance, and we were all acquainted with him as to his belief. And from a young age, Ibrahim alayhi salam, he would see his father making idols and selling to people. And he would then play with this, because he was a little kid, so his father would make these idols from wood, stone, and everything. So he would take them as toys, he would play around with them, and he would kick them. And then he would ask, and when he would go with his father to the temple, he would ask his father, why do you take these toys to the temple? And his father then replied that these are statues that represent our gods, and that we worship them and we ask for favors from them, and we offer presents to them, because they believed that those were the gods. But in Ibrahim's mind, from a young age, he thought, this is weird, this is not, something that cannot benefit you, something that cannot talk to you. How can you believe it, to be God? And that's what his father said. And Ibrahim, from this young age, he rejected all this idea. And Ibrahim did not like this. From a young age, what happened was, he was sitting at home, and he was playing with one of the statues, and he was riding it, like as you would ride a donkey or mule. So one day his father saw him riding a statue called Marduk, and his father became angry. Now he ordered his son not to do this, and he said, "Why, father? This is just a statue. It has no benefit. It is only a statue. I'm just playing with a toy." But his father said, "No, that's not the case." And then Ibrahim asked him, "But father, this is just a statue. It doesn't have nothing. It doesn't do anything." And then as he would say this, he would ask, "Father, also, why does it have big ears? Big ears, really big ears?" And his father would reply that Marduk is the gods of gods. And that these big ears show its deep knowledge. And this made Ibrahim laugh. He was only 7, he was really from a young age, but he, subhanAllah, had this in his mind already. He rejected this idea that anything that would not live would benefit people. So as Ibrahim grew, as time went, he became a young man, and his understanding of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala his passion to look and to seek who created us, why we're here. So he would seek this, and again he would ask himself, he would not understand how someone who's sane, someone who can think for themselves, would make a statue, then worship it. And something that did not drink, that did not eat, or something that did not benefit him, he could not believe that people still worship them. Again, when he would go to the temple, he would see people bow themselves, and they would cry, they would beg, and they would ask these idols, "Oh, help me, I have this problem, I have that problem." But initially, in the beginning, he used to find it amusing, it was something funny to him. But later, later he became angry, because he thought to himself, you have a mind, why would you worship something like this? And later he became angry. So one night he went to the mountains, and he went away from his community, because he was not happy with what they were doing. And he looked at the sky, and he would look at the sky, and he would look at the stars. And as he would look at the stars, he would see that there are people that will also worship the stars. But again, he thought to himself, why would you do this? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he then correlates, Allah tells us in the story, in the ayahs, thus we did show Ibrahim the kingdoms of the heaven and the earth, that he may be of those who have faith and certainty. And when the night covered him over darkness, he saw a star. He said, "This is my Lord." But when it set, he said, I don't like those that set. But when he saw the moon rising, he said that this is my Lord. But when he saw that it set, then he said, unless my Lord guides me, I shall be surely among the erring people, meaning those who are misguided. And again, when he saw the sun rising, he asked himself, this is greater. This may be my Lord, and this is greater. But when it set, he said, O my people, indeed I am free from all that you join as partners to Allah in worship with Allah. Verily I turn my face towards Him who has created the heavens and the earth, and I am not of those mushrikeen, those who ascribe partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is from Surah Al-An'am, chapter 6, from verse 75 to 83. Now, as Musa a.s. tried to explain to his people, he tried to reason with them, and he would tell them, look, this that you see, they do not benefit. They will come and they will set. They you can see them now and they would go. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He existed before anything was created, and He will exist when everything else is destroyed. And that we should rather worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who will be ever living and who exists forever. Now, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has guided Ibrahim alayhi salam, and that as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him the understanding of the religion and gave him the understanding, he had a duty or responsibility to invite who? To call his people to the truth. And who is more in need of that person? Rather the person who's closer to you, which is your family. And the first person he actually invited was his father. And that because as a son, this is something, he took this as his responsibility to pass on the message so that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saves him from Jahannam. And as Ibrahim alayhi salam was a wise person, he did not want to make his father look foolish, and he did not want to embarrass his father. So he would ask him in a gentle manner to show that he loves him, and ask him, "Oh father, why do you worship something that is lifeless, something that cannot hear you, does not see you, or cannot protect you?" But his father threatened him. His father threatened him, saying that, "Do you reject my gods, O Ibrahim? If you do not stop this, I will indeed stone you. So get away from me safely before I punish you." And look at the reply of Ibrahim alayhi salam. Ibrahim said, "Peace be upon you. I will ask for forgiveness of my Lord. Verily, He is unto me ever most gracious, and I shall turn away from you from those whom invoke besides Allah." You see, even though his father, the way he replied to him was very harsh, you see, look at the manners of Ibrahim alayhi salam. He was very calm, polite, and he also made dua for his father. And this is something that we can learn from the life of Ibrahim alayhi salam. And because his father would not listen, or rather convert to the right path, he then started to direct his efforts towards the people. But again, they rejected his call and threatened him again. And in Ayah Surah Al-Araf, chapter 7, Ayah 179, the translation, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "They had hearts, but they do not understand by them. They possess eyes, but they do not see. They have ears, but they do not hear. They are like animals, nay, but more misguided, and they are negligent." Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has showed them the truth, even though Allah, through Ibrahim alayhi salam, even though they've seen the truth, they rejected it, because they wanted to follow what their forefathers followed, and that they just wanted to follow their desires. So what happened was that Ibrahim, he made a vow. He made a vow that he wanted to take an action. So what he did was, at that time there was a celebration. So when the celebration was happening, he stayed behind, and he excused himself, saying that he was ill. When the people left the place, he got an axe. And what did he do with the axe? He would go into the temple, making sure that there's no one there, and that he would destroy all of the idols except one of the idols, which is the biggest idol. And then what he would do is he would leave the axe around the neck of the big idol. Now when the people celebrated and they were happy in a joyous mood, and they were coming back from the celebration, they found that their gods, the idols, were destroyed. And they became very angry, very angry. And they knew that Ibrahim was one of those people that would preach, or rather talk evil against their idols. And that they summoned Ibrahim, and they asked Ibrahim, "Ibrahim, did you destroy an idol?" Ibrahim said, "No." He said, "I didn't destroy it. The big idol destroyed it. Why don't you ask him? Why don't you ask the idol? Ask your God. Because you said you believe in your God, so why don't you ask your God?" Because the big idol had what? The axe around its neck. But the people knew that the idol could not talk. You see? They knew the idol could not talk. What did that show? It showed the foolishness of those people, because they knew that the idol could not talk. Then Ibrahim again replied, then why do you worship them? If it doesn't benefit you and it does not talk, then why do you worship them? You know? And Ibrahim, before he destroyed the idols, he would mock the idols. He would say, what is the matter with you? That you do not speak? Why is it that will you not eat the offering? You know, the idol worshippers, they would give offering, you know, to the idols. And there would be food in front of the idols. And before Ibrahim destroyed the idols, he would mock the idols because they were not able to do nothing. And subhanAllah, you know, this ayah, this conversation, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala records it again in Surah Al-Anbiya between the verses 59 to 67, which I've just summarized. And the people, they knew that Ibrahim a.s. was telling the truth, and that they were, their mind and their senses was telling them that Ibrahim was correct, but their pride and kibr was preventing them from accepting it. And again, you see, if you remember, Shaitan, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asked him to bow down to Adam a.s., what is it that prevented him from bowing down? It was his kibr, it was his pride. And again, kibr is something that we should try to eliminate from our lives, inshallah, or try to keep away from ourselves, inshallah. And because their gods, the idols, were destroyed, they became angry and they did not want to debate with Ibrahim no more. And they said, we want to take revenge and we want to burn him alive. So what happened? What happened was that the people eventually gathered what? Firewood, and made a big hole. And they did the dagger hole so massive, and they put all the firewood, and it was said that they put the fire up, and they lit the fire. And it was said the fire was so big that even the bird flying above it would roast and burn, and it would drop into the fire and burn it to a crisp. And what happened was, they couldn't push him into the fire from a near place, so they had to catapult him. So they put him into a catapult, and they catapulted him into the fire. And as that was about to happen, Jibreel a.s. came to him, and he asked him, "O Prophet of Allah, can I help you, or can I do something for you?" He said, "No, I don't need your help." He said, rather he asked him, did Allah send you, or did you come out of your own will? But he said that he did come out of his own will. He said, "Don't worry, I don't need you, Allah is enough for me." And the moment he was catapulted, Allah ordered, "O fire, be coolness and safety for Ibrahim. Be coolness and safety for Ibrahim." And the moment he went into the fire, nothing burned except the ropes that were tying his hand. And he eventually came out of that fire, subhanallah, you know, with a radiant face. And again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is again mocking those people in Surah Anbiya, verse 70, saying that, but they wanted to harm him, but we made them the worst losers. Meaning, because they wanted to harm him, but they couldn't. And because they did not believe, out of only two people, one woman and one man, which is Sarah and Lut alayhi salam, which Allah eventually made a prophet, Ibrahim eventually decided to migrate. So he first went to the city of Ur, then he went to another city of Haran, then he traveled to Palestine. And after traveling to Palestine and staying there for quite a while, then he traveled to Egypt. After traveling to Egypt, Ibrahim alayhi salam, he went there to call the people to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so that they may accept his message, and so that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can guide them to the truth. And what happened was that Ibrahim alayhi salam's wife, she was approached rather by a king, and the king, he wanted to come near her. Every time he wanted to come near her, she made dua, and his hand became paralyzed. And the moment his hand became paralyzed, he would ask her, make dua that Allah, you know, makes my hand come back to normal. And she would make dua, and then the moment his hand come back to normal, he would then approach her again. And then she would make dua, and then his hand would become paralyzed again. And he would try this for a third time, and then he would tell his servants, "You brought someone evil to me," meaning that he saw Sarah was someone evil, meaning that he thought he was a magician. And so that he left her and he gave her a servant. And this servant was named Hajar. Now, because Sarah was sterile, meaning she couldn't give birth, and Ibrahim a.s. was getting old, so what she did was she offered her servant to marry Ibrahim a.s. And when she married Ibrahim a.s., she gave birth to her first son, which was Ismail a.s. And inshallah we would mention the things that inshallah with regards to him and his father, the things that they have achieved, inshallah. And as you can see, this is a small map of the journey that Ibrahim a.s. made to do what? Not to escape or to run away from torture, but rather to fulfill the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ibrahim a.s. told his wife and his son, his wife Hajar, to get ready with Ismail as they were going to Sept and make a journey. And when they went on the journey, they went and they reached an Arabian desert, and they reached a valley called Makkah, which is today called Makkah. And at that time there was nothing, there was no life, there was no buildings, no people living in that area. And this, the Prophet Ibrahim a.s., he would leave them on a high hill called Al-Marwa, and he would leave his wife and his son under the tree. And then after he left them, and his wife came after him and asked him why he's going. Ibrahim kept silent. But later, as she asked, Hajar understood. She said, is this a command from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Ibrahim a.s. replied, yes. And then she replied that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not neglect us, and that Allah will look after us. And Ibrahim then made dua. As the food and the water was finishing, then what happened was that the Hajar, the mom of Ismail, she ran from As-Safa, which was one hill, to Al-Marwa 7 times, just to see if she can find someone to provide or to help them with food. And as she was running up and down, eventually what happened was what? Jibreel a.s., he came. And he then, what did he do? Ibrahim came and was digging the earth, and in that area that he digged, water came out, and that water eventually became Zamzam. Now, to prevent the water flowing away, she then made a small a reservoir so that the water doesn't go away. Now, there were travelers, and they saw birds hovering around the area, and they knew that any bird hovering around an area would be that an area there would be water. And then what they did was they sent a messenger to see, and they then found that there was a child and a woman near that area, and they came and they asked permission if they can settle. And these travelers are from Yemen, and this was a tribe called Jurhum, which eventually would be the beginning, or rather the ancestors of the Arabs. And eventually they would settle down, and Ismail a.s. would grow up and marry one of their daughters and learn the Arabic language. Now, Ibrahim a.s., after a long time, he came back to see his son. And he asked for where his son was. And after inquiring, after asking, he found that his son was sitting under a tree, and he was near the Zamzam, sharpening his arrows. And as they came together, they hugged each other and they greeted each other. One night, Ibrahim a.s. had a dream that he was slaughtering his son. And he told this dream to Ismail. Now, this is a test from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Ismail knew this also was a test from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he said that, "Oh, my father, you will find me among the patient, those who are patient." And Ibrahim laid his son to prostrate, and he would put his forehead on the ground and he would then direct his sharp knife towards his neck. At that very moment, Allah says, "Oh Ibrahim, you have fulfilled the dream. You have fulfilled the dream." And thus we do reward the good doers. And from this is where we get our celebration, Eid al-Adha, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tested our Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam. And because he has passed that test, this is a day of celebration, and that's where we, the rituals of actually, once we go to Hajj and we perform the Hajj and we finish Hajj, we would sacrifice an animal, and that ritual goes back to Ibrahim alayhi salam, because we are commemorating the sacrifice of Ibrahim alayhi salam. Inshallah, this was a summary of the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam and his son. I did not go into details because of due to time constraint, but inshallah, if Allah wills, inshallah, next time I can go into detail. Inshallah, whatever khair I've said, or whatever goodness I've come from this, inshallah, is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and any mistakes I've made, inshallah, is for myself, inshallah. And I would like to ask if you have any questions you would like to ask.
You remember when Ibrahim was put in the fire? How was he put in the fire?
The brother asked when Ibrahim was put into the fire, how was he put into the fire? So the way is, I do not have an image here, but what happened was that when the fire was lit up, they could not just push him into the fire because it was so hot. So they made something called a catapult. So what they did was, they would put him on that machine, and that machine would throw him into the fire. So it actually throw him into the fire. And that is how they actually put him into the fire, because they could not push him because the fire was too hot. And hopefully, inshallah, I should answer the question. Can you repeat that again?
How did they put him inside the catapult?
In the?
Inside the catapult. How did they put him inside?
The machine itself.
Oh, you see, the machine itself, if I can get an image, would be, you see, where is the, just give me a second, I'll see if I can get an image. Just bear with me, yeah? Maybe. What I'll do, inshallah, I will show the image afterwards, inshallah, and then I'll explain to you how it does, inshallah, because of that time constraint. And then what I'll do, I'll answer the last question, and then I'll pass on to the next speaker, inshallah.
I heard another narration that said when he came out of the fire, only the top of his hair was burnt there.
Well, from what I've read, and it was said that when he actually came out of the fire, the only thing that was burnt was rather the ropes that was tying his hands, and nothing else was burnt. Because what happened was, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered the fire, or fire be coolest and safety for Ibrahim. And not only when he came out of the fire, he came out that with a radiant, his face was radiant and white and shining because of the iman emanating from his face, inshallah. Because of time constraint and my time is finished, inshallah, I would like to pass on to the next speaker, inshallah. Jazakallah khair for listening. And again, if Allah wills, inshallah, I will go. If Allah wills, I will go into detail on another time, inshallah. Jazakallah khair, and pass on, inshallah.